For most of human history, the Indian subcontinent served as the economic center of gravity for the world, holding an estimated 25% of the entire global economy. This concentrated prosperity began with the land. Massive river systems like the Indus and the Ganges provided enough agricultural surplus to support some of the most hyper-dense settlements in the ancient world. We can still see the scale of this engineering today. 4,000 years ago, civilizations here were already using carefully planned urban grids and advanced sanitation systems that much of the world would not rival for centuries. But the mechanism that turned India into a global trading superpower was biology. Spices like black pepper and cinnamon contain compounds that are mildly toxic to small bacteria and pests, acting as powerful natural preservatives. This meant a bag of spice could last for years without spoiling, allowing it to function as a durable global currency. This map shows how global commerce naturally bent toward those assets. The overland Silk Road from the east and the oceanic spice route traversing the coastlines both converged directly on the Indian subcontinent. By controlling the primary bottlenecks for the world's most valuable goods, India became the ultimate economic target for every emerging empire in the West. This concentration of wealth funded massive leaps in science and statecraft. During the Mauryan Empire in the 3rd century BC, the Emperor Ashoka utilized the state's vast resources to build extensive hospital systems, public wells, and highway networks for ordinary citizens. The physical markers of Ashoka's unified power are still standing today, carved in stone across the subcontinent as a record of his reign. These resources also fueled the Gupta Empire's scientific breakthroughs. Scholars like Aryabhata used advanced trigonometry to correctly deduce the Earth's rotation and closely approximate the value of pi to 3.1416, centuries before European mathematicians reached the same conclusions. Successive empires continued this accumulation of capital. The Chola dynasty built immense naval fleets to project influence all the way to Southeast Asia, while the later Mughal Empire concentrated agricultural wealth on an unprecedented scale. You can see the financial power of the Mughal era in their architecture. Undertakings like the Taj Mahal required a massive surplus of labor, engineering, and raw capital. By the year 1600, thousands of years of trade had built a civilization so prosperous that it disrupted the global balance of power, forcing the West to look for any possible way to claim a piece of it. This map shows the problem those traders faced. By the 15th century, the Ottoman Empire expanded to control the critical pathways between Europe and India. They levied heavy taxes on the spice trade, causing severe shortages that threatened European economies. To bypass the blockade, European shipwrights developed the caravel. Using triangular sails, these ships could sail efficiently against the wind, allowing them to navigate the brutal currents around Africa and reach the Indian coast directly by sea. In 1600, the British arrived under the banner of the East India Company, a private corporation granted a strict monopoly by the British Crown to prioritize shareholder profit over regional governance. The company exploited a growing vulnerability. As the massive Mughal Empire began to fracture into smaller, competing states, the company offered advanced British artillery and mercenaries to local princes. In exchange for this military backing, the princes granted the company the legal right to collect local taxes. This chart shows how the trap closed. The company forced local rulers to pay for the British administrators stationed in their lands, often lending them the money at interest rates of 24%. The math was impossible. The debt rapidly overwhelmed the princes' revenue. To clear their ledgers, those rulers were forced to hand over more and more political authority. A private corporation used debt to execute a hostile takeover of a nation without ever fielding a traditional invading army. With the tax infrastructure under their control, the company began dismantling India's domestic economy. To protect British factories from competition, they placed crippling taxes, sometimes up to 80%, on superior Indian-made textiles, intentionally forcing local manufacturers into bankruptcy. The human cost of this policy was catastrophic. Under local rulers, taxes were a percentage of the harvest. If a drought hit, you paid less. But the East India Company demanded fixed taxes paid in cash, regardless of the weather or the harvest. When the harvests failed, farmers who could not pay were evicted from their land. With no safety net and no food reserves, millions were systematically starved in a series of manufactured famines. Meanwhile, the corporate administrators enforcing these quotas lived in extreme comfort, entirely insulated from the devastation their ledgers were causing outside their walls. By extracting an estimated 8% of India's total GDP year after year, the British stripped the industrial capacity from a 5,000-year-old superpower, leaving behind an impoverished supplier of raw materials. The breaking point arrived in 1857, when hundreds of thousands of Indian soldiers mutinied. Though the rebellion was suppressed, the British government realized a private company could no longer hold the subcontinent. The Crown dissolved the company and took direct control, beginning the era of the British Raj. This map shows the Raj's primary strategy for maintaining control. The British intentionally divided provinces strictly along religious lines, allocating land and jobs so local populations had to compete to survive, rather than challenging British rule. But the effort to permanently fracture the population failed. As nationalist movements gained momentum in the 20th century, leaders like Mahatma Gandhi adopted a strategy aimed at the very thing the British relied on: economic cooperation. Through campaigns of mass civil disobedience, millions of Indians refused to buy taxed British goods. By spinning their own local cotton and harvesting their own salt, they targeted the colonial economic monopoly. The sheer scale of this resistance made India ungovernable. In August of 1947, massive crowds gathered in Delhi to watch the lowering of the British flag. It was the end of the most severe corporate wealth extraction in history. Despite this period of extraction, India's deep cultural and economic foundation survived, allowing a newly independent nation to rebuild its position on the global stage.